Biloxi, Mississippi. That's the ocean. This isn't gonna work. All right, here we are, back on the vlog. Season 2, could this be considered season 2? It's a new year. Happy New Year, everybody. Today is Saturday, coming at you from Biloxi, Mississippi, here at the Beau Rivage. It's an MGM property. Maybe you could consider it the Bellagio of the South. Would that be an appropriate name? Maybe. I've been here since yesterday. I was supposed to be here since Thursday, but we don't need to go into the ridiculous airline debacle that occurred, which resulted in me arriving here a day late. Now that we're here, normally I would say, man, I'm excited to be here, because I was quite excited to be here when I arrived. Unfortunately, yesterday did not go so well in the poker department. I didn't vlog it because I was exhausted from all the traveling. I had gotten 3 hours of sleep each of the previous 2 nights, so was just gonna arrive, play some poker, hit the grind, hit the tables, and come at you guys today. Yeah, yesterday was a rough one. I started off in the no limit tables. The game was a little bit slower than expected. There's a big tournament happening here this weekend and all of last week called the $1 Million Heater, which I think is a great name for a tournament series. So that's going on right now, and normally when there's a tournament event going on here at Biloxi, here at the Beau, makes for some great games. This is my second time here. Games are always good here in Biloxi, especially so when there's a tournament event going on. So I was a little surprised when the no limit game that I was playing in was a little bit slow, a little on the slow side. However, there was more PLO games, more 5-5 PLO games going than there were 2-5 no limit games going. So I thought it might make sense, switch it up, hop into that PLO game, and it did not go well, to say the least. Lots of coolers, lots of run bad, and probably some play bad mixed in there as well, considering that I was nowhere near fully rested and nowhere near 100%. Bad recipe for disaster, and disaster it was. Lost over $6,000, which ranks up there as one of my worst sessions ever. So to say that 2018 is off to a little bit of a rough start, I think is appropriate. But no need to panic. Plenty of opportunities, not only here at the Beau during this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. The year has only begun. So yeah, it sucks. It's a little rough to put that number up on the board right off the bat. When you start the new year, you want to start off fresh, get off to a good start, obviously, and that is not what happened. But we're gonna get back to it. I'm up here in the room, sharing a room with my buddy Adam. He gets comped rooms here, which is always nice. So thanks, Adam, for the invite. It's going great. All right, let's head down to the casino. We're gonna get back to our roots. We're gonna be in a 2-5 no limit game today. The buy-in is uncapped on every single game here. You can also straddle from any position. So I suggest we buy in for $1 million, we straddle lots, and we do whatever we can to sort of reduce the damage here. But we'll see how the game is. Let's go. By the way, I should say that I need to mention that that game, that 5-5 PLO game, every person was straddling, just about every person. So it was a 5-5-10 game, which 5-5-10 PLO probably plays a little bit bigger than, or somewhere around a 10-20 no limit game. So either way, let's just hope we don't lose another $6,000 today. Let's hope for a little better result, shall we? Poker is underway here at the Beau Rivage. 2-5 no limit hold'em, unlimited max buy-in. I'm in for $2,000. Also of note, in the 2-5 games here, the no limit games, you can straddle from anywhere, any position other than the blinds. Only double the big blind, but straddling from anywhere, pretty cool feature. So in this hand, the cutoff has the straddle. The big blind limps in, and I look down at 5-6 of spades in the middle position. I'm gonna raise this one up and make it 35 to go. You get 4 callers, so 5 ways to a flop of King 8-7 rainbow with 1 spade. Checks to me, and I'm gonna put out a c-bet here. Can easily represent the king as well as barrel away on some turns and rivers. So I go ahead and bet $80. Only the straddler makes the call. So heads up to a turn card, which pretty favorable turn card for us. Offsuit 4. Turn the nuts right away. Time to go for some value now, so I bet $205. My opponent thinks for a little while and unfortunately makes the fold. So no value for us with the nut straight. So in this hand, the button has the straddle on, and there are 2 limps before I look down at King Queen offsuit. Decided to raise it up here and make it 55 to go. There's 2 callers before the first limper jams all in. It makes it 245. In a straddled pot, this would equate to a 2-5-10 game and $245. That's not very many big blinds. So I go ahead and make the call. There's another caller behind me. So we're going 3 ways to a flop with some potential heads up action on the side. Flop seems like a good one for us. Queen 3-3 rainbow. I decided to put out a bet to deny any potential equity there is out there. So I bet $250. My opponent on my left folds pretty quickly, so heads up to the main pot now. Turn is another 3, river is a 7. I go ahead and show, and the all-in player shows ace king. So get a little bit lucky here in this situation. Maybe some run good coming our way after the previous day's PLO run bad debacle. In this next hand, the button straddle is on again, big blind calls. I look down at pocket jacks in middle position, $35 to go. Probably could have sized up there a little bit. 35 seems a little small with pocket jacks. Facing 1 limper and the button straddle on, I think I could size at least 40, 45, maybe even bigger, but I make it 35 here. The button and the big blind both call. So 3 ways to a flop of 9-8-7 rainbow. Seems pretty good for us. No overcards plus a gutter ball. First player checks. I bet $60. Button makes the call and the other player folds. So heads up to a turn card, which is an offsuit 10. We do make the straight right away on the turn. I decided to check it just because I feel like my hand is more likely to induce a bet rather than to be able to value bet twice. If it goes check check on the turn, I can probably go for value on the river, but I decided to check it over to him on the turn here, and the button does put out a bet. He bets $150. I don't think there's too much point in raising here because I feel like he's either bluffing or potentially has the nut straight or the same hand. I don't think he's gonna bet 2 pair here too often. He might check back here on the turn with a hand like 2 pair or even a set. So I don't think I have to deny equity that often. Those are my thoughts at least. So I go ahead and make the call for the 150, and we're off to a river card, which is a total brick. I check it over to him again, and this time he just checks it back. Certainly seems like he's just giving up here. I go ahead and show my hand, and it's good to scoop this one. So this next one is a kind of a fun hand here, and I should sort of discuss my strategy for these particular games. Playing very deep 2-5/510. At this point, I'm somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe $4,000 effective. There are other players that have equal stack size. So this is a pretty deep game, especially for a 2-5 game. $4,000 stack is not an uncommon sight here for these 2-5 uncapped games. So with that in mind, I tend to play a somewhat wide range pre-flop. I like to pick hands that can flop well. Lots of suited connectors, suited gappers, suited ace-x type hands are for sure in there. Just lots of hands that can make a disguised hand post-flop, good playability. That's my pre-flop strategy at least. When it comes to post-flop, I don't want to go too crazy because people tend to call down fairly wide. They tend to make generally some loose calls, at least on the flop and the turn. If I can make some disguised hands with some interesting pre-flop selections, then I think that's going to work out for me. It could be burning a little money because it's somewhat difficult to connect with a lot of these hands. But when I do connect with them, I think it's going to see pretty good dividends considering how deep we are in this game. All that being said, that leads me to this hand. The button straddle is on again. There's 2 limpers, and I look down at 5-3 of hearts. $60 to go, and we find 3 callers. Flop comes queen 7-4, 2 clubs, 1 spade. It's a total whiff for me, so having such little equity in this situation, I'm not going to be looking to put in flop barrel. Maybe find a delayed c-bet, but probably not facing this many opponents. So when action checks to me, I decide to check it as well. Turn is a deuce of spades, so we improve to an open ender, but action checks to me and I'm still not looking to fire away with so many draws out there, so many potential continuing hands, so I check it back again. River, however, is 6 of spades, so we end up with a straight here. Backdoor spades come in, but I shouldn't be too worried about that considering nobody bet on the turn. Action checks to me again, definitely gonna value bet, so I bet $200. There's 2 folds, and the player on my right goes into the tank, kind of talking out loud about he doesn't think I have too much here. He eventually decides on the call, and I go ahead and show. I think he was expecting somewhat different of a hand, but this one works out for us as well, and things are rolling here in this 2-5 no limit game. Okay, one more interesting hand here. Look down at pocket jacks. The straddle is not on in this hand, so I make it $20 to go. Folds to the hijack, who makes it $80 to go. Folds back to me, and I don't think I want to put in the 4-bet here because facing a 5-bet would suck. I just decide to make a call and play post flop. Flop comes favorable for us. Ace, jack, 7, rainbow. Check it over to my opponent, bets $110, which is a welcome sight. Board is pretty dry. I don't think there's too much point in raising. I think he's going to continue barreling with his ace-x hands, and I don't want to shut out his bluffs. So I go ahead and flat call. Turn is the queen of hearts, which puts up 2nd heart. I check it over to him again, and this time he bets $300. It's about half of his stack. He's not super deep in this spot. He's only got maybe a little bit over that size behind, maybe 310 or so. So I go ahead and jam it in there. I don't want to see a king or a 10 or a heart on the river, and he's already put half his stack in. So expect to get called here a decent amount. Sure enough, I do. River comes a brick. I go ahead and show, and my opponent shows pocket aces. So what we thought was a favorable flop was anything but, and unfortunately the streak of run good there comes to a pretty abrupt halt. Set over set. Thankfully we're not deeper. There were for sure some deeper stacks, and I guess it's a little bit of run good when your opponent in a set over set situation is not that deep. Always got to be looking at the bright side in these situations. So that's gonna do it for this session, today's Saturday session. It's a long one. It was a long session. This was about a 16-hour session, just grinding. We're out here, we're grinding, and we're into this game for $2,000. We cash out for $4,425, something like that. $2,400 profit. Put a little bit of a dent in the big, painful, terrible session that I played when I first arrived. So can't complain, ran pretty good, and happy to be back on the upswing, hopefully.